Hi, my name is Kathy Millett and welcome to my Starting Scenery 5-minute video course. This week, basic tools and materials. So this is my basic toolkit, the tools I use every day. There are plenty more in my workshop, I promise you that. But if you think I'm missing something that you feel is really important, let me know in the comments below.
So what's in my basic toolkit? Well, first up, knives. I have a big box cutter for that early part of scenery, cutting up foam core and cardboard, etc. And then a finer X-Acto knife with a number 11 blade. As well as that, sharpener to keep your knives nice and sharp, and loads of replacement blades. The more you have, the more likely you are to use them. A metal ruler so you can't do wavy lines by cutting into it, and underneath it all a self-healing cutting mat, which means you won't damage your work surface. Next up, weights and squares. I even have a few bricks that I use. The paving blocks are really flat on one side, but when you're gluing, painting, you'll need to hold things flat so that they don't move apart while setting up, and also if you're building walls, etc., squares help them stay square. Tweezers and pliers make good work of holding things. Now, I do have a lot more tweezers and pliers than this, and this is a cutting set and a holding set of pliers, but this is the basic kit, so just a couple in there. My favourite is scenery, and that needs a lot of gluing, and for that I use spray bottles. I like the trigger ones, I find they're less tiring on the hand, and for thicker mixes I use a dropper bottle. You can use a pipette, disposable pipette. I just think a dropper bottle will hold more and it's quicker. One thing you may spend a lot of time doing is sanding, especially if you have a 3D printer. So a nice set of metal files, a sanding block and emery boards are all useful for help with this. I also have paint brushes in every size, from decorators brushes all the way through to number 000 fine brushes, and sponges and disposable brushes which are great for putting on glue or resin. Scenery can come with a lot of mixing, adding water to plaster or sculpt to mould, and I find disposable pint glasses great for that, and other disposable cups such as shot glasses great for smaller amounts. I have a big supply of them. And last but definitely not least, protective gear. You probably all have a mask at home at the moment, but make sure it's rated for organic solvents if that's what you're using. Otherwise, if you're doing resin sanding or anything like that, either wet sand or use a protective dust mask. Glasses are also important, and gloves to stop things getting on your hands. And now on to basic materials. There's some that I use all the time, such as glue and paint, and some of the basic scenery vegetation. So first up is glue. I actually get by with craft glue, white glue, PVA, whatever you want to call it, 90% of the time. But other than that, I use super glue, runny and thick, and I'm using a lot of hot glue now because I'm doing a lot of my base scenery, and that's easiest built up with hot glue. We mentioned spray bottles already, but what do I put in them? Well, the answer is dilute white glue, about 1/6 white glue to the rest of it water, just to try and get it through the fine spray. Or if I'm using the dropper bottle, I use 1/3 white glue to 2/3 water, and then wet water. What is wet water? Well, it's water that makes your glue flow. So I tend to use 1/3 isopropyl alcohol, 2/3 water. Some people use fairy liquid, washing up liquid. It's really up to you. Next up is paint. Now I have a myriad of model paints on the side, but I use artist acrylics for my scenery. I use raw umber especially for my earth colour, and I do have some custom mixed paints that are matched to photos for my sky and backdrops. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know I love tile grout. Mix in a bit of sand if it's unsanded, otherwise your glue won't go in, and it comes in a multitude of colours. Otherwise, soil. Soil from your garden can work, can be a bit dark. You'll need to sieve it to get rid of any bits and to get it to a scale model size. Next up, the two main things I use for vegetation. Firstly, static grass. Nothing looks like grass other than fibres that look like grass. Secondly, ground foam. It's a good old favourite, and it comes in a variety of different sizes of grain, and I use it everywhere. It's brilliant for adding colour and texture. And finally, you don't need to buy all of your scenery products. This is from the gutter of the road outside a restaurant, and here's the serviette, and I picked it up, and in O scale and above, these make beautiful maple leaves. They're actually silver birch catkin seeds. So those are my basic tools. There are loads more that I couldn't live without now, and I'm sure you will have your own favourites. Please let me know in the comments below what tools and materials you can't live without.
Thank you though to my Patreons, and you can find a list of all of these tools and materials on my website